I felt it before I even looked at anything. Before I touched a single item, before I checked a single price tag, before I gave the place any actual chance to tell me anything about itself. I was in a store I don't normally walk into, nicer than what I usually shop at. The kind of place with that quiet, hushed lighting, where everything looks like it's asking you a question just by existing there. And within about 10 seconds of walking in, something in my chest just tightened. This isn't for me. I don't belong in here. Nobody said a word to me. Nobody looked at me twice. Nothing had actually happened yet at all, and I turned around and walked back out. Last time, I told you something I inherited without ever choosing it, in the shape of a hand pulling money back before it even reached out. I said I had a feeling that wasn't going to be the last thing I found like that. It wasn't. Because a few weeks later, standing in that doorway, I felt something that had nothing to do with a guitar and nothing to do with my mom. This one was newer. This one, I could actually trace back to somewhere specific, a corporate job I had a while back, years ago now. I was about as low on the totem pole as you could get there. Entry level, new, still learning where the printer was, and everyone above me, and there were a lot of people above me, had this whole other life running in the background of their 9 to 5. Nice cars in the parking lot, vacation photos on their desks that looked like something out of a travel magazine. And every so often, one of them would invite me out to lunch with the group, which sounds nice. It was meant nicely, mostly. Except the places they picked were never the places I would have picked for myself. White tablecloths, menus with no prices next to the entrees, just next to the wine. I remember one lunch in particular. My manager's boss was there, somebody I barely ever spoke to directly, and he ordered a bottle of wine for the table like it was nothing, the way you'd order a pitcher of water. Everyone else started ordering appetizers to share, entrees that didn't have prices listed at all, just descriptions. Seared this, reduction of that. I sat there running numbers in my head the entire time, trying to guess what my share of the check was going to look like, half listening to the actual conversation, because I was too busy doing math nobody else at the table seemed to be doing at all. When the food came, I'd ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, some kind of soup, and told everyone I just wasn't that hungry. Nobody questioned it. Nobody probably even noticed. But when the check came and they started splitting it evenly across the table, my soup ended up costing about the same as everyone else's seared and reduced entrees, and I just smiled and paid it, because saying anything felt like it would have made me look even smaller than I already felt. I'd sit there doing math in my head while everyone else just ordered, easily, like the number on the check was background noise instead of the main event. I'd get something small, order water instead of a second round, split things I didn't actually want to split, just to keep the total lower on my end. Nobody there was cruel about it. Nobody made me feel small on purpose. But I remember learning something anyway, without anyone teaching it to me directly. A kind of internal radar that could scan a room, a restaurant, a store, a conversation, and quietly tell me, this one's not for you. Don't get comfortable here. I got good at reading that signal fast. Fast enough that I stopped noticing I was reading it at all. It just became a feeling that showed up, uninvited, and I trusted it completely, the same way you trust your own eyesight. So when I walked into that store and felt that same old signal firing, I didn't question it. I just left. Quietly, quickly, the way I'd apparently been trained to. My friend went in to browse. I told him I'd catch up. Needed some air, figured I'd grab a coffee from the place next door and be back in a few minutes. I sat outside on a little bench, coffee in hand, not really thinking about anything in particular. Just letting my chest unclench a little, the way it does once you're safely back outside a place that made you feel small. I took another sip of my coffee and noticed something green on the branch beside me. A praying mantis. Hey there, lil green dude. I watched as he stood perfectly still for a moment. Then, slowly, he lifted one leg and placed it farther along the branch, one careful step. He didn't launch himself forward. He didn't retreat back the way he came either. He just checked the next spot, one small movement at a time, like the branch owed him information before it owed him a decision. And something about that, something so small, so completely unrelated to me, just stopped me for a second. I hadn't taken a single careful step in that store. I hadn't checked anything. I'd felt one thing for maybe 10 seconds and let that one feeling make the whole decision for the whole store. Before I'd looked at a single price tag, a single item, a single thing that might have actually been meant for me. The feeling walked in, and it walked right back out, and it never once asked the facts for an opinion. I looked back toward the jewelry store. Then I got up and went inside. I walked back in, and I found my friend near the sale section, holding up a pair of earrings. Hey, these are kind of your style, aren't they? Little lightning bolt ones right up your alley, and they're marked way down. Didn't even realize this place had a sale section. It's tucked back in the corner. I looked at the price. It wasn't nothing, but it was well within what I would have spent on plenty of other things without thinking twice. It was the kind of number that, 10 minutes earlier, I would have sworn didn't exist anywhere inside that building. I just stood there for a second, looking at them. Because here's what actually hit me. It wasn't really about the earrings. I wasn't devastated about almost missing a pair of earrings. What hit me was how close I'd come to never even knowing they existed. I'd made a decision about an entire store, every single thing inside it, every price, every possibility, based on 10 seconds of a feeling in a doorway. I hadn't checked one single fact before I turned around and left. The feeling wasn't wrong about how it felt. It just wasn't right about what it knew. That's the part I keep sitting with. In the moment, it didn't feel like a guess at all. It felt like a fact. Solid, certain, the same way knowing my own name feels certain. But it wasn't a fact. It was just an old guess from those lunches years ago that had been repeated so many times it forgot it was ever just a guess in the first place. If that just hit you, because you've ever walked away from something before you even checked whether it was actually meant for you, hit that like button right now, because you're not alone in this. And Mo is just getting started. So once that hit me, standing there holding a pair of earrings I almost never knew existed, I started asking myself something different than I usually do. Not, was I wrong to feel uncomfortable? I wasn't wrong to feel it. That discomfort was real, and it came from somewhere real. A bunch of lunches I never should have had to sit through doing silent math in my head. I'm not trying to talk myself out of the feeling. I'm just trying to stop letting it cast the only vote. The feeling can show up. It just doesn't get to decide by itself. I bought the earrings, by the way. They were exactly my style, and the number on the tag was one I didn't even have to think twice about. And I kept thinking, the whole drive home, about how many other stores, other rooms, other conversations I've probably walked myself right back out of over the years, without ever once checking a single fact first. I started paying closer attention after that. A couple weeks later, a friend mentioned a restaurant she wanted to try. One of those places with the kind of website that makes you feel like you need a reservation just to look at the menu. My first instinct was the same old one. I'll just say I'm not feeling like going out. Easier than admitting the real reason. But I caught it this time. That same old radar humming in the background, telling me this one's not for you either. So instead of declining, I actually looked up the menu first. Turned out there were a few dishes well within what I'd normally spend on a night out. Not everything on it, but something. I went. I ordered the thing I could actually afford without flinching, and I had a genuinely good night, sitting in a room that used to be exactly the kind of place my old radar would have steered me away from on instinct alone. That's the whole shift, really. Not forcing myself to feel comfortable somewhere I don't. Just refusing to let the discomfort make the call before the facts get a chance to weigh in. And look, if nobody ever taught you this stuff, that's exactly why this channel exists. Hit subscribe, because Mo figured it out, and now it's your turn. I keep thinking about that little mantis, taking his one careful step, checking the branch before committing his whole weight to it. I used to think caution like that was the same thing as fear, like being careful and being scared were just two words for the same thing. I don't think that anymore. He wasn't scared of the branch. He just wasn't willing to let a feeling make a decision that a fact should get to weigh in on. I've spent a long time letting an old signal walk me out of rooms before I ever gave the room a chance to tell me anything true about itself. And it hit me driving home that it's probably never really been about rooms at all. Because if a feeling that old could talk me out of a store, I have to wonder what it's been talking me out of that isn't a place at all. A conversation I never started. An ask I never made. Something closer than a doorway. Stick around, because where Mo goes next, you're not going to want to miss it.